My name is Chief here, and joining me. Welcome to the Fishbowl with everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is just me, myself, and I. I'll be doing the show solo tonight. Jalen and Juicy have the night off. Now let's get right down into it here, guys. So, Louisiana Ragin Cajun men's baseball. The baseball team is taking on Wright State this weekend here. So, Wright State's been in a regional. The Cajuns went to a regional in Coral Gables last year, and they didn't get out of the regional and ended up winning one game in that regional. And they kind of like was not the way the Cajuns wanted to end their season at all here. So let's look at this here real quick here. I love looking at Warren Nolan for their predicted results for the Raging Cajun baseball team here this year. So Warren Nolan has the Cajuns at 42 and 14, 21 and 9 in the Sun Belt here. So let's see what kind of games they have. They're winning. They have them sweeping Wright State this weekend. Of course, everybody's RPI is ranked number one. Not too surprised there. Got to have more games to have like a uh, analytical set of data for them to kind of configure through. Be like, you're gonna get there whenever you get a couple of games done, basically. So you can kind of see where your team's gonna be at in this index of ratings they got there, rankings basically. And they got McNeese in a midweek game here. So one thing that I noticed about the Cajuns last year was they kind of got off to somewhat of like a kind of back and forth, kind of this okay start, I guess you would say in baseball. And then toward the end of the season, they got red hot with the hitting and stuff, and really got real hot in the Sun Belt tournament. Made it all the way to the championship game last year, which they ended up falling to Southern Miss. So that is one thing we have to look out for and see how all these things are going to go on here. So let's see how Warren Nolan has them um, figuring out this year. So let's look at. I like looking at quadrants. It's a really good test of identity of where your team is looking at here. So Warren Nolan has the Cajuns being 3 and 8 in quadrant one, 9 and 3 in quadrant two. This is all based on RPI. So quadrant three, 14 and 2, quadrant four, 16 and 1. So who are the wins in quadrant one that it has them getting here? So I'm assuming that they're gonna have some of these losses. They have them losing to Vanderbilt, number 6 Vanderbilt, number 4 LSU. So that's something that we're looking at here. Houston's in this Astro Foundation College Classic. They have all these little classics and everything going on here. I'm trying to see who else they have on this schedule that it could be qualifying in this RPI high ranking up there. So Coastal Carolina, they have them getting swept by them. They're ranked number 18. Maybe Southern Miss might be up there. I'm trying to see where these wins are coming from that they have them in the quadrant one ranking, because it could depend. It could be anywhere between 1 to 50 or 1 to 25. All opponents here is 1 to 50 is quadrant one. So if you're doing really well in quadrant one, quadrant two, you're basically battling regional teams. That's always what I kind of, you get a good thought process of how these teams are performing here when you look at RPI rankings when you get down toward the end of the season. So really difficult to say how the Cajuns are going to be this year. It is opening weekend. They did announce their starting lineup here, this starting rotation for the Cajuns. Here, we'll get into that in a little bit here. But, this is something I want to bring up here. So, they brought up the fact that, they brought up the fact that the Cajuns are, a very good team. Last year they got real hot, like I said earlier, and they're able to pile on and be able to do very good things with that there. So that's one thing we have to look forward to this year here. Now, this is one thing I want to tell y'all about here. Let me grab this real quick. Is the Cajuns have never made it to a super regional or Omaha on their decks, okay? And Tony Robichaux brought them there in 2000. Is this the year that they're actually going to do it here? So this is one that we're going to have to see how this plays out here. And at the end of the season, I think it was kind of important to note that he basically came out and he said the word. He said Omaha. Like, this season was the season that was going to be made for Omaha. Now, the Cajuns do look like they're going to have a better understanding of what they need to do here. So I'll have this pulled up on Twitter here so I don't get all these. They have all three announced here. Let me see. I have it retweeted here somewhere. We did get the chance to participate in Independent Parade, yesterday for Mardi Gras. It was nice seeing a lot of people in Acadiana, going out there and just throwing out beats to everybody, and just being a part of Mardi Gras atmosphere is always a good thing to actually see here. So we'll see what happens. So for Friday, the Cajuns have right-handed pitcher Jake Martinez, and then Saturday they got left-handed pitcher Chase Morgan, and then Sunday they finish it all up with Carson Fluno. So and then Tuesday, left-handed pitcher Andrew Herman. So you got this setup here. So how is this going to work for them? This is kind of a somewhat of a new lineup somewhere with the Cajuns here. But Cajuns dug deeper in the transfer portal this year, so it's interesting here. You never know how baseball is going to flow with your team. You could be kind of doing a slower start. You could be fast paced and burn out toward the end, or you could be somewhere in between. That's how the Cajuns were last year. They were somewhere in between. Then they got really pushed toward the end there, and were able to make a really good run toward, regional play or so. And that was something that they'll have to build on. So the last 2 years, they've made it to the regionals, and they made it to the Sun Belt Championship game. Now, one year they won it, and this year they lost. Last year they lost it. So the year before that. So we'll see what happens here. This will be one thing to kind of look and see how everything's going here. So we'll see what happens here. So now the Cajuns here are having I think the Cajuns may get to they might get to a super this year. If the pitching goes off better than they were last year, if that's improved like they say it is, a lot of people said it is improved, but I don't like taking people's word for it. I like to see it in action before I make any promises or anything. Because you get bit in the butt a good couple of times if you believe everything the internet tells you. So we'll see when it's in action, and we'll see where we're at here in a couple of weeks. But looking prognosis for the team, I think it's looking like, from all points that I've seen here, this looks like a better pitching staff. From the scrimmages I went to and looking at, they look better than they did last year. They look like they have more control of the baseball when they're pitching, and that control looks like they can go longer in innings for the starting pitchers. Then you get the middle reliever coming in. I think the Cajuns have a really good chance at doing this kind of thing and doing a very good job this year. Now, coming down to predictions for this weekend here, I think Cajuns take 2 or 3 over Wright State, and they end up beating McNeese for the midweek game. So I think that's something that we can look forward to as we approach, again, a deeper sense of this baseball tournament going on, this baseball season we got going on here. I'm thinking of a Sun Belt tournament for men's basketball that's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. But speaking of that anyway, let's kind of switch over to talking about softball, right? Let's go out of left field. Quite literally, right? But anyway, so the softball team here, they've had really kind of a disappointing start in my opinion. I expected them to do a little bit better this year coming out of the gate. It's not really a bash on them too much. It's an early season. It's like, kind of physics is whenever you hit a ball, like warm air rises, cold air sinks. And I remember Matt Deggs whenever we were in a press conference like last year that I went to. He was like, it's like kind of like physics, He brought up that whole cold air sinking and hot air rising. You'll notice that the bats get better as the season goes along. And that it's kind of an interesting point though. Like the balls get hit out further in the field because the hot air is rising. I'm not no scientist or anything, but that does sound right to me. That does make sense to me in my head. So if there's any scientists or anybody watching this, that would be kind of something to kind of look into and see how all that's going there. But looking at how it's going and stuff, so softball here. Let's get down and look into this real quick here. So right now, live RPI tracking for the Ragin Cajun softball team. They're currently at 31. 1-3 in quadrant 1. 3-0 in quadrant 4. So they start off hot. They won their first 4 games. They beat Cal. Then they lost to Cal. and what has become this trend on the internet, a little viral moment, basically, not a trend, so to say, a viral moment of, they were kneeling for the national anthem, and of course, they bring politics into it. Uh, both sides were expressing their First Amendment rights, in my opinion, and you know, I think it is what it is, right? It's just, if you believe one way or you believe the other way, you're gonna go for it. And it's like, dude, honestly, this getting into politics makes me kind of just like not really. I care about it, but I just think people think too much along party lines, and they should really evaluate the people that are running for office and look at political positions of the people instead of just relying on what letter you have next to your name. That's just me. I think we'd have a better country if we did that, but that seems like to be a lost art these days. When you're trying to look at what people actually represent and what they're actually going for. But I'm gonna get off my soapbox a little bit before I actually get too deep into my soapbox. But anyway, um, Chattanooga, California, Chattanooga, New Mexico, and California. So, the whole viral moment of Cal wanting to stop the game because rain was pouring down and the ball was too slippery for them, and then throwing it over their heads and letting the Cajuns score a run, tying the game up, and then going to overtime, and the whole fiasco of ejecting people and stuff. It was a pop-up shower. It didn't last that long. I think Cal overreacted, which was really unfortunate because it was a really good game up to that point there, and it was like, just let them finish it out on the field. It's not lightning. There was no lightning in the vicinity of the area. It's just called toughen up at that point there. It's not. Oh, I'm gonna be. It's gonna be fair. Like no, it was fair. Both were playing in those conditions. Cal just got unlucky the fact that it started pouring out rain at that point. That's just basically what happened. They just got unlucky at that point that it just started pouring out rain. So, but they did end up winning the game, so it didn't really cost them anything. Then Cage is going on the road to Starkville, Mississippi. They dropped both games, so now they're at this situation where they're 4-3, almost 500, and you got a top 25 team ranked Baylor coming to town. Baylor hasn't won a game yet this year, so. But like I said, it's early in the season. I know Gary Glasgow was upset with the fact that the defense could have played better and the bass wasn't hot this weekend. The best game they had this weekend was the 21-run game that they had against Chattanooga, but Chattanooga is 1-4, and New Mexico is 1-6. So there's that you got going on there. So in regards to all that, if the Cajuns could sneak out some wins against Baylor, like get 2 or 3 against them, it really, inspire momentum and get confidence because they don't have no momentum right now. It felt like you had momentum when you beat Cal, then you went there and beat Chattanooga, New Mexico, and now you lose to Cal. Okay, that was kind of a bummer. But I think Mississippi State's better on paper than a lot of people give them credit for because they had a really good pitcher to shut down the offense. Usually, like the Cajuns here, it's only 1 run. Usually, it could be a sign of bad things for the Cajuns, but I think they're just trying to gel. I think that's the problem right now with the softball team. They're just trying to gel and find roles because, yeah, Kendria Land graduated last year, so you're trying to find that second pitcher that could come in if Sam Landry can't go, and that, just trying to find roles. You're trying to find what place you are on the team. What is your position? What is your role for your team? Are you gonna be called up from the bench to go hit in a crucial spot in the game? A pinch hitter, basically. Pinch runner, that kind of thing. Like, what role are you going to play? Are you the designated hitter? Are you working into that role? We're going to see all that come out as these games get played and as this season starts going more and more down the road for the Cajuns. So, looking at it here, Baylor, RPI is 80. They're way up there. I think Cajuns come back this weekend. I think they settle down. Then they hit the nose to the grindstone because they beaten. Highest RPI they beaten this year is 37. but I don't really care for RPI too much because it's so weird. Like Louisiana Tech, it's number one on Tuesday that they got to play next Tuesday. I think Cajuns will beat Louisiana Tech. I just don't see them losing that one. I think they'll take 2 or 3 against Baylor. Let's say they win Friday, Saturday. I got them losing Sunday. I think they'll take 2 of those 3 and beat Louisiana Tech because we saw last year what they're capable of. This class of juniors was not ranked number one for a reason. I think they got developed very well under Gary Glasgow. They're just trying to find roles. Everybody's trying to settle back into. It's a young season. It's too early to hit the panic button. Like people overreact on Twitter and stuff. Like the world is falling apart because we're a little bit above 500, but standard for softball is a lot more higher than any other UL sport, obviously. So big for obvious reasons. They've had the most success. Look at all the Sunbelt titles they won. Straight example right there. So that's what's going on with that there. So yeah, that's what we got going on. So I'm thinking the Cajuns take 2 or 3 against Baylor, and they go into beating Louisiana Tech. I got them going 3-1 for the next 4 games, and they'll turn their attention to the Lone Star Invitational, which will be a very crucial part of the season, I think, for the Cajuns to really see how good, ready they are to take on that super regional competition. I didn't see it against Mississippi State, so maybe with these next couple of games, they'll get more fine-tuned and figure out what kind of roles they have, and they'll be able to keep on going forward into the season. Now, I want to talk about Louisiana Ragin Cajun men's basketball. So right now they're at 109 live RPI update here. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games, which is unfortunate. And you're probably wondering why is it unfortunate? Because Louisiana had a really good chance to really make a run and have 1 game behind App State because they are right there on the door of. They would have been right there. They'd have been right on the door at App State and Troy because they would have been 9-3, sitting right there if they wouldn't have dropped that game to Georgia State. And I predicted them beating Georgia State, and it made me feel bad because I'm like, y'all are right there. And it's just last year they struggled down the stretch, man. They went 3-3 last year, heading into the Sun Belt tournament, and people were like, okay, this isn't good. So now you're playing one of the worst teams in the Sun Belt, Old Dominion. They did beat Bowling Green. Sun Belt dominated the MAC, and the Cajuns won 86-60 over them. They were shooting very well. The Cajuns from the floor were shooting 56% and 50% from 3-point land. So they shot very well. Excuse me. Oof. But yeah, it's gonna be one of those things. So Old Dominion and App State, you got they're vying for those spots there. They got App State and Troy, so they got a good chance to at least make up 1 game on them. But they need a little bit of help from either or losing or whatever. So looking ahead here, Troy being that second to last game, Troy themselves, they already played App State and they already played the Cajuns. So do they play the Cajuns again? They got Arkansas State, ULM, Texas State. So it's not looking like they'll pick up any losses there in the Sun Belt to help them out. So granted, that's not good news for the Cajuns at all. Now App State, 18-5, RPI 58. Here's the crazy thing. So I've seen some rumblings on the internet that they might actually make it if they don't win the Sun Belt. And that's crazy to think about because usually the Sun Belt's a 1-bid team. I don't believe that too much. I have to see that to believe that for App State. But that would be something kind of cool to watch, you know, if they actually make the NCAA tournament, be in that kind of way, and just seeing. Because it's a very interesting point they made. They're like, oh, look at their quadrant records and this kind of thing. Well, let's go look at that real quick here. Their net rankings is like they're 2-0 against quadrant one, 1-1 against quadrant two, 5-3 in quadrant three. That's what I think is going to hurt them in the at-large process because you got bad losses on there. You got 3 bad losses in quadrant three, and that mathematically that doesn't add up very well for you. And looking at predicted results for them, it has them ending up with RPI of 53. I think the Cajuns are going to beat App State. This predicted result has them winning out here. That'd be 6 games. I think Cajuns beat them though. I could see that very well happening. That's not being a homer about it, but I think the Cajuns, if the way they were clicking on the inside game very well with the men's basketball team, I see a very good opportunity for them to really get up there and actually contest for the Sun Belt regular season title. If they're able to put everything together and make it weld into one basically here. They played very well getting it down low. Demas Folks, Kobe Julian, and the guys, they've been playing very well. Very good individual teamwork there. The Cajuns struggled shooting from the floor. Offensively against Georgia State, it was kind of like one of the worst I've seen this season here. 28% from 3, 37.3% from the floor. They did good on the offensive side of the ball. They had second chance points. They had 9 to 6 offensive rebounds, 27 to 30 of defensive rebounds. Look, if you get more offensive rebounds on the team, you probably should be able to outscore them a good bit here. The Cajuns were up 39 to 30 at half, and they got outscored by 18 points in the second. You know, that's the crazy part. But picking this week here, big game on Saturday. I got them beating Old Dominion tomorrow. I got them beating App State on Saturday. Then they play UOM. They should beat them too. So I got 3 straight wins. Now Southern Miss is gonna be one that's gonna be a dogfight because this Cajun and Southern Miss rivalry is getting in every single sport, and you love to see it. Very passionate fan bases going at each other, and you know it's a very good 4-hour drive basically from each other. So it's not really too far out, you know, and that's something that would be really good for the Cajun to have another in-conference rivalry brewing with Southern Miss, obviously. So we'll see how all that goes here, and hopefully everything goes up for the Cajun men's basketball team here. So looking at it here, let's talk about Louisiana Ragin Cajun women's basketball team so far. It hasn't been the best season. They've been riddled with injuries at points, and it's just not been going well. But I'll say because you want to get in that 4th seed for the tournament, okay? So it's not about how bad you did so far this year, or you could be the worst team, like South Alabama in the conference being 1-11. You can still win the tournament, get into the tournament. You just have to get hot at the right time, and that's how basketball is, and that's how baseball is. Those 2 sports, even softball's like that too. Like the stick and ball sports and basketball, for some reason, like the Cinderellas of the world, they get hot and they make deep runs, and you're like, wait, what happened? Basketball's like you just can't shoot till you miss. Like sometimes you just knock it out of the park. And you find yourself, you're like, okay, we got a good shot at doing this here. So Cajuns are RPI 147. They can't get it at large. They are way too high to get it at large for RPI purposes for women's basketball. So if the Cajuns can get, let me see what the predicted results have. So it has it finishing 500, 151. So yeah. So for the rest of the year, it's got them winning every single game except Texas State, which I can see happening. I think they might get a couple of losses in there. But for the purposes of looking at this here, they need Georgia State to lose, Old Dominion to lose, UOM, Arkansas State, Southern Miss, and App State. You're going to need some help. But they're only one game behind the 6-6 teams of the Sun Belt, which is Arkansas State, Southern Miss, and App State. Which, if you look at their schedule, presents a unique opportunity to get in past both 2 of those teams there that we just previously mentioned. Arkansas State and Southern Miss are right there. That's 2 of your 3 right there. So if you can beat those two teams and not lose any conference games, which is your last 6 games of the year, you're positioning yourself very well for the Sun Belt tournament. You're probably wondering, well, why is the number 4 seed so important? Like I said before in other previous podcasts, less games to play, less chances for you to lose. That's why the top 4 seeds in the Sun Belt tournament is so important, because less games you play, the better off you're going to be, right? So if they can figure this out and somehow they can beat Old Dominion, or actually Old Dominion lose. I'm talking about Georgia Southern. I don't know why I was thinking Old Dominion, but Georgia Southern is right behind them at 3-9. They should be able to beat them. Georgia State's the one I want to talk about, but they've already played them. So you got Alabama. Should give you 2 wins there. Arkansas State, until the midst of the big ones left on the schedule, you need to win. Texas State, they are sitting right there too, but they're 3-9. They're 2 games back from the Cajuns. They have to win that one. They're almost all these Sun Belt games now have 2 wins. You get that number 4 seed, because you need to have, a shot, right? Let's see what Southern Miss has coming up for them. Their last game of the season. This is let's see where they're gonna end up at here with this schedule here. So if it ever pulls up for me here, guys, I'm trying to look and see how all this is gonna work. They're playing Arkansas State, Texas State, UOM, that kind of thing. So yeah, not looking good on that end there or any help there. Arkansas State, they're gonna play the Cajuns in this last couple of bit here. A bit of games that they have left here on the schedule. They have a date with App State, so and Troy. UOM. Troy's 9-3, so that's the big one for them. James Madison and Marshall kind of sitting up there. Marshall been dominating the Sun Belt women's basketball tournament, the game this year, but they've been historically good at women's basketball, so it's not out of left field that's going on. So, yep. So if you watch the Louisiana Ragin Cajun one here, we're going to switch over to LSU baseball now to talk about what's going on with them. Then we'll get into the men's basketball and baseball, softball, that good stuff for LSU. I'll talk about baseball since it's the defending national champion LSU Tigers here are going to take the field Friday. So they have the LSU tournament, which is kind of weird thing for it, but very generic. Just a plain generic tournament name, but I wish it would name it something cool, like I don't know, Field of Dreams tournament or something, or just something different, right? Not just name it after the school, LSU. But it's what we got. The LSU tournament is this weekend. So they're playing Virginia Military Institute. Then they got Central Arkansas. They play Virginia Military Institute again. Central Arkansas, Northern Illinois, Stony Brook, which many LSU fans are very familiar with Stony Brook because of that regional. Northern Illinois. Looking at this here, just because it's kind of like early in the season, I think the Tigers could lose 1 or 2 of these games here in this little stretch, because that's a lot of baseball to play on consecutive days. From Friday to Monday, but I think the level of competition is too much for Central Arkansas and Virginia Military Institute to handle. So I think LSU wins their first 4. Then you got the Thursday game against Northern Illinois. And, that kind of stuff can wear you down as a team here. So I know that LSU released some of their pitching arrangement. This hasn't been a complete thing yet, but we're kind of getting close to the end here. So the opening night starter, Thatcher Hurd's going to take the mound. That's been announced today. So that'll be something to see here, how he does here and how he becomes the ace of that bullpen for LSU. So we'll see what happens with all that there. So I think being 4-0 heading into that Northern Illinois game here, They could very well be 8-0 leaving this thing here. That's a very good possibility, but I think 6-2 would be a really good one for LSU to leave the tournament with. I mean, they all have home games. Then they go on the road against Rice, but then they have a National Foundation College Classic. Excuse me. And then they have Texas, number 16 Texas, and the Cajuns, and then Texas State. So you got those next three games there. So that'll be something to kind of like look at and see how all that's going on there. So um, LSU had a lot of players on D1 Baseball's top 100 list here. That's one thing that uh, you can say about Jay Johnson's ball club. He's going to have some talent on that team because they definitely know how to get quality players into the LSU program. So Tommy White's back. That'll be something to kind of see here. They had 9 players named to it, so that is impressive. And in Sports Illustrated, they had 5 named top 100 prospects for the 2024 MLB draft. That was announced last fall. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Some fans were upset with LSU being ranked number 2. And then I think D1 Baseball put them at number 4. So yeah, but it's early. It's early. I mean, they lost Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens from last year's squad, so that's understandable. 2 great players, all Americans, they're not there this year, so they're going to have to find other avenues for offensive firepower and, pitching. So we'll see what happens with all that there because, I mean, that's something we're going to have to see and how they develop as the course of the season goes along. Now, granted, you don't want to have a bad start either. So I think LSU, I think they're in a good spot. They're going to be able to go through all these games and be able to win the majority of these games here. So I think it's going to be good for them. I think they'll do very well. And I think they'll make it through this tournament at worst 6-2. And I don't think they're going to be 6-2. I think they'll be 7-1 if I had to place money on a bet on it, but we'll see what happens here. So let's look about LSU softball. Now, they've been turning some heads. They moved up a little bit here in the rankings here at number 9 in the country right now. This weekend's going to test them. This past weekend, you got an 0-4 Memphis team. You got a 4-2 Nichols team. Nichols is probably your best competition, honestly, based on RPI, but RPI is crazy at this time of year, so I don't really buy it too much. But Pittsburgh being 2-2, Nichols being 4-2. They have not allowed a run yet, so LSU's pitching has been phenomenal. It's hard to hold somebody to no runs in 5 games, so I'm thinking this LSU squad has a chance to actually make it back to the Women's College World Series. Now, it's going to depend on how these pairings add up, so we'll see what happens there. But this Shriners Children's Clearwater Invitational is going to be a big test for LSU here because they got 2 top 10 teams in this next segment of games for this weekend. They'll first take off Georgia Tech, then Northwestern, Oklahoma State, Washington, and Minnesota. So, I think they win these first 2. I think LSU softball, their pitching is going to do very well. They looked a lot better at pitching this year than they did last year. From based on what I saw. Now, the sample size is very small, but we're going to see what their arms are really made of when they play these 2 top 10 teams to see if they're ready for the Women's College World Series or are they just a regional team. Pitching is going to take you through those part there. And offense, so if they're able to hit good pitchers. So, I think LSU's going to take one of these top 10 teams down. They're ranked number 9. I think LSU's pitching's that good. I think they'll shut them down. I think they'll have enough offense to get it done. But let's say I think they'll lose to Oklahoma State. I think they'll beat Washington. For some reason, I think Washington is the more beatable opponent than Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State looks better than them so far this year. So I'll be 3-1, then go into Minnesota. I think they'll take care of business against Minnesota. So that'll be a 4-1 is what I'm predicting. Worst, they lose both these top 10 teams. That'd be the worst case scenario for LSU. Or actually, worst case scenario would they lose all 5 of these games coming up here, and that would just be kind of putting them way back there. Taylor Pleasance, Sierra Briggs, they're all Americans, right? They've played their position. They know what they got to do to get the job done. So I'm thinking LSU. I think my worst prediction for them to go 3-2 and lose both these top 10 teams. Best case scenario, of course, is being undefeated 5-0. But that not allowed to run is going to be going this week here. That it'll be a nice when it lasts, but I just don't see it lasting too much longer. As much as I hate to say that, but I think they'll drop a couple of these games here somewhere, and it'll just be one of those, that they're going to figure out. Like, I think they're kind of in a spot like the Cajuns are, except the Cajuns got hit with, I would say, tougher competition technically with Mississippi State and Cal, and because of the Sun Belt Conference isn't that great at softball as a whole. Now, Marshall's good, James Madison's good. That's just something we're going to have to look at and see where they're going to end up being at. So, that is something that we'll have to dig into and see how good LSU softball team is as we go along the season here. So, I think that's what we got going on here. That's my prediction for the week here. So, we're done talking about baseball and softball. Let's get down into men's basketball and women's basketball. LSU men's basketball suffered a loss at the hands of Florida. LSU's quadrant records isn't that impressive. They're 2-7 in quadrant 1, 1-3. That's RPI. Net rankings, if you want to know, they're 2-7 and 2-3. 2-7 in quadrant 1, 2-3 in quadrant 2. So it's not looking like they're going to be. I don't even know if they're going to make even that large here at this point because RPI 126. You're and net ranking at 92. It's high. You're like 30 spots away. You need wins, and you need quality wins. And they could have had that opportunity here with the Tennessee and Alabama game. But it isn't going to be now. You got number 11 South Carolina, number 22 Kentucky. One's on the road, one's at home. They might be able to beat Kentucky at home. I don't see it happening. I think they'll lose both these games here. Now there has been more a shift of the top 25 teams falling on the road. That's why I say that. But then you got Mississippi State and Georgia. I think Georgia will even beat them again. So LSU looks like they're on a 3-game losing streak. They lost 6 of their last 7. Trey Hannibal has been trying, coming off the bench, doing very well for LSU, but I just don't think they just don't quite have it just yet to really compete here in the SEC. Maybe another year of building it up a little bit for McMahon, but I think they'll drop these 2. And I got them lose Mississippi State next week. I just don't see them having enough to get it done here because looking at how well they shot against Florida and all these other ones, look like Florida and Tennessee and Alabama. Let's look at these last couple of games, how they shot the ball. So, for the Florida game, LSU shot 50%, from the 3-point line 52%, but, you're probably wondering, well, LSU's got to get better at getting boards, man. They got to learn how to box out and be real physical on the inside. They're shooting very good. The problem is they just can't seem to get down in the paint and really get rebounds. Rebounds have killed this team this year for LSU because if you look at these last 3 games here, this is kind of a symptom of the whole entire season. The last time they really the Tennessee game, they did really well. 18 offensive rebounds to Tennessee's 5. You go down to Alabama and Florida, almost mirror. Exactly looking like at a mirror. Alabama had 19 offensive rebounds. LSU had 6. Them second chance points really add up here, even though LSU shot better percentage wise than Alabama in that game. Alabama was 38 of 81. Okay, 81 shot attempts. All right, to LSU 60 shot attempts. That right there is a lot. Okay, so if you're taking good quality shots, you'll make them. And LSU, they did a very good job of shooting the ball very well that game. Alabama were 3 pointers. It's kind of the same thing with Florida. Like, look, LSU from the floor, they shot 55 times. Florida shot 68. Florida had 19 offensive rebounds. LSU had 8. So, usually when you get offensive rebounds, you're probably going to score because you're controlling the inside, and it makes it very tough on those guys on the outside because they're going to start making 3-pointers or taking shots in the wing and stuff like that to get back into the game. So, like, look, and almost mirror 61.9 for LSU at free throw. Florida at 60%. From beyond the arc, LSU was shooting 52. Florida shot 23, and that's why this game was so close. But offensive rebounds ultimately bailed Florida out in that game, and Alabama kind of did, I think they did the same thing that first time they played against each other. LSU could not handle them on the glass there too much because Alabama got 31 defensive rebounds. LSU only got a 14, but they did get more offensive rebounds than Alabama in that game by like 2. So, no 3. My bad, 3. But Alabama shot better than they did that night. So, we'll see what happens with all that there. So, looking ahead, South Carolina, Kentucky, I got LSU losing both of those and Mississippi State as well. So, I just don't see it going very well for the Tigers right now. LSU women's basketball, on the other hand, is having a great season, and they're going to get in at large regardless of how they do in the tournament here. They're really setting themselves up very well in the SEC. They got off a win against Alabama, 85-66. Then they beat Vanderbilt in Florida, 85-62. Florida 106-66. They had a 2-game skid. They had lost 3 of their last 5 at one point, but they're kind of over that. They got a 3-game winning streak, I think. So they're starting to, are they getting hot at the right time? We'll find out. That Tennessee game is one to kind of watch, see how well they handle the tougher competition. So Texas A&M, Auburn, Tennessee. I think they'll get revenge against Auburn. I think they'll beat Texas A&M. I got them win those 2. Tennessee's kind of a toss-up for me. It's going to be on the road. Whenever you look at these tougher opponents here, LSU has not gelled very well, except, Virginia Tech, they ended up beating them. RPI of 18, with early in the season, South Carolina number 1, of course. Mississippi State, RPI of 28, so it's going to be tough. So I think they'll lose to Tennessee. I got them losing to Tennessee, and I think they'll beat Georgia and Kentucky to finish out the year. So I think they'll end up being 4 of their last, 5, 6. I think 7 of their last 8 games they'll win. I think they'll win out except for Tennessee. And that's what I think for the rest of the year for them. Yeah, we'll revisit this after we go back. But that's my last 5 games of LSU in basketball. Angel Reese and company have done very well. We'll just see what happens, though. So, it'll be very interesting to see what happens here. So, thank y'all for tuning in here to the Fishbowl Radio for this live stream here. I like doing these live streams. They're fun. It's not as much editing and process. I feel like it's more personal to connect with y'all and stuff and talk here live here on the Fishbowl Radio. So thank y'all for tuning in here. Hope you have a great and wonderful week here. We try covering as much as we can here, but I try to typically keep these things 30 minutes because, watching something for 2 hours, you get typically bored of it. So, thank y'all for tuning in here. And we'll see what happens here. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great and wonderful night here. We'll see you here next time here on the Fishbowl Radio. Have a good night, Fishbowl Nation.